What are Ghastly Flins' biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. One of the things that I should absolutely start off with is that if you have his premium team, he is one of the best DPSs in the game. I do believe that Jabai is a little bit better now, but he is definitely one of the best DPSs in the game. If you invest into him, you can be very safely reassured he is going to be strong. Now, in order to get the true Flins nuclear experience, you would ideally want either Ineffa or his own C1 if you don't have Ineffa, but even if you don't have either of those components, he is still going to feel very strong, considering that his free-to-play team recently got Hexarai buffs. That meaning, Sucrose and Fischl got an upscale, therefore his free-to-play team naturally followed suit. So, all around, this character is extremely strong, and if you're looking for a powerful main DPS, then you should definitely consider going for this guy. I have basically been clearing the last couple of abysses using this guy, and no, I am not using my C6 Farina. I am using just his basic free-to-play team, and honestly, it still feels really strong to use. I also think that getting him now is probably the most ideal time to get him if you want to leverage his meta value, because for the past couple of months, Abyss has featured plenty of lunar enemies, and Flins is obviously excellent at dealing with them, even in his free-to-play team. The only occasional issue I have in his free-to-play team is survivability, in which case, you can just swap out Sucrose for Shilonen, and that's probably going to solve it for you, at least that usually solves it for me. It's obviously not going to be as good as using Sucrose damage-wise, but it's not going to be the thing that makes or breaks your clear. So all around, he's a very strong DPS no matter what level of investment you're at, being one of the current best in the game, and his premium investment is utterly nuts, while his free-to-play investment is still very worthwhile, especially at the minute when we have consistently been getting plenty of lunar enemies in the Abyss. Another thing that I should mention is that he is currently the best Electro DPS in the game. No other Electro DPS can compare to him at the minute, especially after he got all of his premium teammates. I will say this doesn't necessarily mean other Electro DPSs are bad. Chloriander and Varessa are still more than capable of clearing the Abyss, but even so, Flins is definitely the definitive strongest option to do so now, and if you want the best possible Electro DPS, that is another excellent reason to invest into him, because going forward we're likely not going to get another one for a hot minute, because we don't tend to get Electro DPSs super often. I would expect he'll probably be replaced by next year, if we're just looking at Electro DPS alone, because he's always going to be the best Electro-charged DPS. I doubt they make another one exactly like him next year. They're probably going to make it feature some different gimmick to separate them from Flins. But even so, he is really strong, and if you're somebody that likes collecting a strong DPS of every element and you haven't covered Electro yet, then Flins is a great pickup. But I'll say this now for people that do already have Chlorandra or Varessa, you don't have to feel pressured into getting him if you don't want to. Those characters are still good. Another thing that I should mention, which I touched on earlier, is that he has a very nice free-to-play baseline. This means that he doesn't necessarily need his premium team in order to perform good. I will say he definitely does take the most advantage out of his potential if you have Ineffa on your team, but this does not mean that Ineffa is a strict requirement. Far from it, honestly. So if you feel like Ineffa is needed, I'll say this. Ineffa is definitely going to make Flins more comfortable going forward whenever Lunar Shill eventually leaves the Abyss, because mark my words, there will eventually be a day where Lunar Shill is no longer the main thing. But that's why I said that now is probably the best possible time to invest, because going forward we're probably going to continue to get lunar enemies in Abyss until the end of 6.x, until we get to 7.x, and then we're gonna have to see what that region's gimmick is. So now is the best time to take advantage of his free-to-play team. Even so, the damage that it deals is really good for the current damage standards, and it's not shabby at all, especially because it got that recent little upscale. The main issue with his free-to-play team is just survivability, which, like I already said earlier, you can always swap out Sucrose for a healer, and while that is going to tank your damage a little bit, it's not going to make or break your clear if the rest of your units are built well enough. I all around find it to be a bit of a misconception that Ineffa is absolutely required, because you know what else you can do? Just pull for Flins' own C1. That literally fixes everything. It will essentially compensate for a lack of Ineffa, so you can just do that and you're going to get by more than just fine, because Premium Flins is really freaking strong. And if you do happen to get Ineffa, then great, going forward, you're probably going to be able to comfortably use him for a long time. But even so, just as he is now with his free-to-play team, he still feels really strong in my opinion, and I am still having no issues clearing Abyss with him. So, all around, pretty good character at free-to-play level, and I do think the reliance on Ineffa is definitely over-exaggerated. It might become more exacerbated in 7.x. I'm just gonna warn of that now. I don't think it's always going to be like this when the damage standard raises again, but for now, I do think it's like more than sufficient. And to be honest, going forward, I do expect it to be great for the rest of 6.x. Another thing is that if you happen to have Staff of the Scarlet Sands, don't pull for a signature weapon unless you want the drip, because SSOS is literally only like 2-3% worse than the signature, so you'd basically be pulling for hardly an upgrade at all. Of course, you'd be pulling for drip, so if that's important to you, then by all means go ahead. And by this metric, he's also going to be a pretty good beginner pull, because if you have literally nothing on your account, you can form a pretty strong team with him full of 4 stars, and you're gonna be able to clear Abyss pretty soon after you manage to start farming endgame artifacts. So he's a character who is both accessible and powerful. Another thing that I should mention is that he has excellent high investment. His high Primogems based investment is fantastic because he gains such an increase from having Ineffa, because he gains such an increase from having C1. Imagine if you had C1 Flins and Ineffa. Now that is something scary right there, and even if you just pull for Ineffa, that's already going to be a big increase to his teams. It is far from required, and I'm going to emphasize that, even if it is more comfortable, but it is a great upgrade to his teams, no matter what way you steer the wheel. So all around, you can very much invest into him and get a lot out of your investment. His own constellations are absolutely fantastic, and you can of course always invest into Ineffa constellations, and if you really want the best in slot for your Flins team, you can always pull for Columbina, and then start investing into that character too. So you have a lot of avenues to invest more Primogems into your Flins team if that's something that you're interested in doing. And the reward you get for investing that much is very, very nice. So all around, a super strong character whenever you invest more Primogems into him. If you got him on his first run and you're thinking, maybe I should invest more into this guy, let me just tell you now, that is a great choice, and committing to him is an amazing investment long term. So have absolutely no doubts about that. Another thing I should mention is that his C1 is insane. It can literally compensate for no Ineffa. And the reason that's so nuts is because think about it like this. Skirk C1 cannot compensate for no Escoffier. Nafer C1 cannot compensate for no Lauma, and that's another lunar unit. Whereas Flynn C1 is literally nuts, so it can compensate because it's just a crazy C1. I remember when Genshin characters needed C2 for this type of upscale. So even if you have or do not have Ineffa, his C1 is an amazing piece of investment to get, because if you have the robot lady, well then goodness me, you're going to be unleashing some absolute nuclear activities on enemies, and if you don't, well then you're going to be able to perform at a premium level without having to pull that 5-star, which is both an excellent circumvention for people who don't like that character, and also a really nice thing to get if you're a new player that just missed Ineffa's rerun, you're waiting for it now, and you still want to be able to play Flins at a premium level. And if you're just starting out the game, there is more than enough Primogems in the map for you to farm to get C1 Flins. All around, this character just keeps shaping up to be a better and better deal. This character, in my opinion, only really has 2 cons. One of them being that he does ideally want Ineffa. It would be disingenuous of me not to say that yes, he does get a big boost from Ineffa. I do think it's very over-exacerbated how much he needs her, but he does appreciate her a lot. This is true, and it is a definitive big upgrade. So Ineffa is ideal, especially because she is the most naturally fitting sustain into Flynn's teams, so it's also going to make survivability a lot easier for you. And she's also just a very strong unit to have on your account in general, so it's just a good deal. But in relation to Flynn's in particular, she is very, very good. Don't feel turned off from getting Flins if you like him, because trust me, his free-to-play team is still going to service you more than just fine. But even so, it is ideal that you have Ineffa. And the final con is just that in his free-to-play team, if you're trying to play best in slot, his survivability isn't the best. I know Fischl and Sucrose are great characters for him, but none of them really have any particular sustain, so it's going to be a bit awkward if you end up dying a lot in Abyss runs. Now, the simple solution to this is you can just add a healer or shielder to your team, and that's usually going to get the job done. Make sure that you always have Aino and Fischl in your team, though. It's Sucrose that's going to have to be replaced, in spite of how much she buffs Flins. But at least in my experience, that's never necessarily cost me an Abyss clear. I will say my Flins is pretty well built, but he sees 0 with Staff of the Scarlet Sands, so essentially equivalent to R1, and I've had no issues clearing with his free-to-play team. The character is inherently very strong, and the issue of sustain can be solved, even if it does come at the cost of damage. Or maybe you're just a dodging god, who knows. All around, I think this character has aged very well. You can definitely invest more into him if you pulled him the first time around, and you're still definitely going to get a really good return on investment. And if you're also looking for a good lunar DPS in general, and you haven't pulled any of the other ones, I'll just say this now, don't bother with Ineffa. Jabai, really good, and then Flins, also really good. The reason I say don't bother with Ineffa is because if you don't have her premium teammate, then that unit's power level may as well not exist. Flins is definitely still going to be good going into the future, and he's literally one of the best DPSs in the game right now if you do either have his C1 or Ineffa. So all around, I can only encourage going for him. If you're happy with your current DPSs, or you're happy with your current Electro DPSs, then you don't need to get him, but he is undeniably a really strong character, so if you're interested, then by all means, he is an excellent investment. And I also personally think he looks really good. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Flins' biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and the biggest pro of them all is the 10 out of 10 design. You cannot look at that design and tell me it is anything less than an absolute banger.